Yes,
And,
if I'm trying to engage, and this is a question is really thrown out to the floor, and anybody can deal with it, and it's really latching on to one of the things you said. What can you do? I'll call you all you majors. What can you do in trying to hook yourself back to the value chain, and therefore SMEs and all the other small organizations? The youths, there was a lot of talk about and excitement about getting the youth involved, because it's their life, it's their generation that's coming on. What can you do to ensure that you plug in? You look at the quality of life in a state, it's how many people are employed, and are we employing the people that have got the energy, the innovation, and so on, to get things going? So this is for any one of you. What can you do? What are you doing? What should we do to get that engagement? Yes, John. Yeah.
Briefly, if we want to build a 100,000-ton starch plant, we will need 400,000 tons of tubers. We will need about 40,000 farmers to do that.
Did you say 400,000?
Yes, 40,000 farmers.
Yeah, 40,000.
So in order to shift our supply chain inward, that's a great logistical task, and here the state does play a wonderful role, because there's no one better than the state to help organize the farmers associations, to set the guidelines of interaction, facilitate this organization of 40,000 people in the supply chain. So I think the state has as the supply chain shifts inward, the state has a great role to play in helping organize the farmers into collectives and arrange the interactions between the industries that are going to take their product and support them to grow
for that type of initiative, do you work with government? It's something that you're just doing on your own?
We work with the state government, who in turn works with the Farmers Association to set up that interaction. And one other thing I would suggest for the states is that having a piece of land and holding it, and it does nothing, is not a good thing. It's better to give the land if that land is going to produce something very productive and is going to provide 100,000 jobs around. So I think the state also plays a great role in how land is allocated, and it's better to have a land that is productive than a land that's not used and is held for the future.
Yeah.
So I think the state has a great role to play. It plays a great role in activating the supply chain, the Farmers Association, as well as coordinating the use of land.
Yeah, they say the best thing for any farmer is to have literally an off-take agreement, whereby everything you produce is got its destination. You were going to say something?
Yes, I would latch a little bit onto what he said, which is to say, if we design the business model itself to be inclusive, and we look at growth from that point of view, about how can growth from the get-go be inclusive, then the fundamental role of the private sector is really to develop growth and to develop markets by understanding and serving the people in the markets in which it plays. We should be wary of thinking about that we do business, and then when we finish, we think about how we contribute to society. I think the responsibility that we have is to define our business models in such a way that as we are actually doing business, the everyday business, we are improving the communities and improving the lives. I'll give you two examples from my own experience. We, of course, deal in bouillon cubes. We have the brand called Knorr. Seeing that anemia is a big issue in Nigeria, we enriched our bouillon cubes with iron so that the daily consumption of bouillon cubes actually addresses some of the anemia problem. We don't do finish selling bouillon cubes and we say, what can we contribute to anemia? Another example that I can give is our campaign on teaching people the right way to brush your teeth and when you brush your teeth. By doing that, you improve the oral health of the people of Nigeria and the people of Ogun State, because 75% of our manufacturing base is here. But also, if people brush their teeth in the right way, they have healthier lives, they consume much more as a result of the fact that they are more productive, and business therefore prospers. So when we talk about competitiveness, we should try to get away from the dichotomy of the private sector sitting somewhere, government sitting somewhere, and when the private sector finishes what it is doing, it contributes something which is the page 13 of its annual report to a much more holistic and integrated model, where the very act of doing business is developing the value chains, developing communities, developing the farming and agricultural system. And I think that uniquely, that's where Ogun State is most differentiated, that this process is understood. Never have I met the governor and his team and had to spend a lot of time trying to explain why business is relevant for development. And that is the thing that Ogun State, in my view, has developed and almost become a thought leader in the context of Nigeria, that it must continue to embrace, that it sees the development effort as very integrated, it understands the roles of the various sectors. We as the private sector also know we can never be government. That's why we are called a sector, not the entire society. So we play within an ecosystem, and all of us come together to build a competitive ecosystem. What we could do as a private sector coming from a global context is that we also, and Ogun State does that, I know when they speak about the Ogun standard, I know definitely that the governor is not happy to be number 5 only within the context of Nigeria. There's absolutely no reason why Ogun State must not embrace world-class standards in what it does. There's absolutely no reason. It is a state that legitimately can have the ambition to play at world-class standards in certain selected sectors, and that's what it must do. When I was here 2 weeks ago, I was much earlier for my appointment than I had been given 9 o'clock, not knowing what the traffic was. I came much earlier. So I decided to tour Ogun State, ended up in parts of Abeokuta that I had never been to. And what struck me is that if you look at the development model and the trajectory that it is going at, very much global values are being embraced, and that's how it must look at itself. So don't be too happy if you become the number 4 in Nigeria. The question I will ask is, why can Ogun State not become the model state in West Africa, and then in Africa and globally? That's Ogun State has the potential, and that's the way it must be.
Thank you very much. As we wrap up, and I'll start with you, and we'll wrap up as well. What I just want us to do is, whilst we give all these well-deserved accolades, the question I want to ask is, what more can be done? What more should be done? So that at least we know it's not a perfect situation, but certainly we're nearly there. And your own advice to the government of Ogun State in terms of the few more steps that we must take whilst you answer the question. Thank you. Now I'll start with Peju. And then I'll go to the end, and then we'll walk our way down here.
Okay, thank you very much. A lot has been said about what makes Ogun State a very conducive environment. I think the theme of this conference is also taking us in the right direction, and I want to start with the issue of the environment. And we said, how can we ensure that the wealth creation and wealth generation in the state is inclusive? There are many initiatives, such as, for example, the various waste to wealth initiatives. Cement plants are by nature huge consumers of energy. And we said that Ogun State is a natural confluence of both the agricultural industry and industries and contributing to industrialization. Biomass, in other words, agricultural residues which are normally wasted and thrown away, can be collected by these smallholders and used to feed other industries for energy and ultimately for power. The same thing with municipal waste, the same thing with industrial waste. So I think one thing the government can do is put regulations in place to enable the collection of these various waste streams, and we can actually use that to empower and enrich the state. So the first is looking at how we can generate more wealth from waste to energy. The second, I would say, is in terms of tourism. Many of you may not know this, but Lafarge has 2 excellent golf courses in Ewekuru and Shagamu, and people come from all over the country to play golf at these golf courses. We can continue to develop the hospitality industry, given that Ogun State is so close to Lagos State and Ibadan, and in fact many people from those states come to Ogun State at the weekend. So I think the area of tourism is another big area in which we can continue to see improvement. The third, of course, which has been mentioned, is continuing to ensure that we reduce all levels of multiple taxation. and we continue to make this a very investor-friendly state. I must say that Lafarge is very impressed with the close collaboration with the government, and as has been already illustrated by this forum, we're very willing to be ambassadors for Ogun State, not only in this country but also internationally. We're invested in many states in Nigeria. We operate all over the country. And we have to say that Ogun State is very progressive in terms of thinking and in terms of creating a very business-like environment. So Lafarge is very, very amenable to being an ambassador for Ogun State, not just in this country, but also outside the country.